Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're making predictions for 2024. Now, most likely, a good amount of these are going to be incorrect. It's just kind of things that I see happening, some realistic, some I'm going out a bit on a limb on, but as things I think will happen in the world of wrestling in 2024, we're going to kind of somewhat go in chronological order, although some of these don't necessarily have a time frame on them. Let's start off where we usually do on these predictions, Wrestle Kingdom. In one of the first of two big matches at Wrestle Kingdom I'm going to predict, Okada is going to beat Bryan Danielson. I mean, it just makes sense. I think if Tony Khan is looking to potentially sign Kazuchika Okada, there's no better way to do it than to show him, hey, I'm okay with you beating one of our top guys. If you come to AEW, you're going to be treated like a top guy. I think Kazuchika Okada wins. That's my first of the two match predictions for Wrestle Kingdom. My second prediction, Tetsuya Naito beats Sonata for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, or whatever the heck they call it now. I think out of the two, this is probably the more likely, and it's mostly because Sonata's reign as IWGP World Heavyweight Champion has been a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. I don't think he's quite lived up to where he should be, and that's no knock on Sonata. I think he's a great wrestler. I also think that we're nearing the end of Naito's career, and I do think that New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially now that Tanahashi is the president, is going to want to give him one last great run with the championship, so I do see Naito winning here. Staying in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Kazuchika Okada re-signs with New Japan Pro Wrestling. This one I kind of toyed with because as much as I'd love to see him more often in a promotion like AEW or WWE or even TNA Wrestling, I think that Okada works best in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think in AEW he may not get the proper push. In WWE he's limited to his English speaking, so I think there is a ceiling he could go to there. However, if he stays in New Japan Pro Wrestling, he could continue to cement his legacy there and keep moving up the ranks to be possibly the greatest of all time in New Japan when he retires. The only thing I see that might change that is if he wants to just try his hand somewhere else. Maybe Triple H or Tony Khan offer him a deal he can't refuse. Generational money. I do think that him staying in New Japan makes the most sense to me. Now, going to a little bit later in January, CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble. And I know I'm not the first person to say this, and I'm probably not the 100th person to say this, but as much as it seems that Cody Rhodes is going to be the guy to do this, I think they're going to put another barrier in front of Cody Rhodes to get to finishing his story, and that barrier would be CM Punk winning the Rumble. Now, Cody doesn't have a clear path to the WrestleMania main event, whereas CM Punk does. With that, I think CM Punk will then challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania, leaving the spot against Roman Reigns open, which then Cody wins Elimination Chamber, and that's how Cody Rhodes gets to WrestleMania. With Cody Rhodes going to WrestleMania, let's go ahead and predict the match. I think Cody Rhodes finishes his story. I don't think you could continue to push this off any longer. I did believe he was going to win last year. It made a lot of sense. It makes even more sense to do it now. The longer you hold off, the more the fans are going to lose interest. The only thing that gives me a bit of pause is that I think Roman Reigns is really close to tying Hulk Hogan's mid-80s run with the championship, and they may want to beat that just to put Hulk Hogan a little bit down the list of champions. I do think Cody finishes the story. I think it's the one that makes the most sense to me. Second year in a row I'm predicting that, but I think he's finally going to do it. Staying in the world of WWE, Mercedes Moné returns to WWE as Sasha Banks. Now this one, and I know I said I would go chronologically, but the story kind of continued on with what I was saying there. I could see her coming back as early as the Royal Rumble to set up a big money match at WrestleMania. I could easily see her slotted in, her and Bayley versus Damage Control, her versus Rhea, her versus Io. There's a million different roads you could take with her. She's such a dynamic talent, and I think the door is open for her to come back. I think she's going to come back. Along with Sasha Banks, our next big free agent that's a women's wrestler, I believe Julia, will also sign with WWE. Now, I mentioned how Okada coming to WWE, there may be a little bit of a barrier with him mostly speaking Japanese. Julia actually speaks English a bit better than Okada, and couple that with the fact that I don't think Triple H is afraid to put a top woman being a foreign wrestler. He's done it with Asuka, he's done it with Io Sky. He's shown time and time again that he's willing to do that, and he might do that for Okada too. I do think Julia, her best bet, if she wants to leave Stardom, is to go to WWE. I think they treat their women's division as good as anywhere she's going to pick to go. The only thing that might be better for her is to go to Impact, where I think Impact or TNA, as it's going to be in a couple weeks, has the best women's wrestling and has had the best women's wrestling for over a decade, at least in America. So I think that's another option, but I don't think they can match money to money wise with WWE. So I think she's going to go there. Speaking of WWE, going back to WrestleMania weekend, Paul Heyman, Tommy Dreamer, and possibly ECW as a whole are going to go into the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is in Philadelphia. They try to keep it themed with the city that they're in. They'll put in legends from that city or people that are tied to that city, like the Von Erichs in Texas, Bruno in the Garden. They try to give it a feel of the local flavor. And now I think we're at the point where some of the ECW stalwarts, they're winding up their careers. Paul Heyman's definitely going to go into the Hall of Fame at some point or another. They've shown with Rey Mysterio that they're willing to have someone be in the Hall of Fame and be an active member of the roster. If Heyman goes in, I think Tommy Dreamer also goes in. I know he's working with TNA right now, but I do believe that he'll be able to go into the Hall of Fame. The Dudley Boys are already in there, so they don't need them to come. I don't think they put Raven in. He's historically been at odds with WWE management. However, I do think he deserves it. Sabu is an off chance to go in. I think for all of those guys, this would be the first time that they put an entire promotion in, which may or may not open the floodgates for other promotions to go in. But much like they did when they started putting in factions, I think putting ECW in as a whole would cover a lot of guys that aren't necessarily going to get a solo chance to be in the Hall of Fame. Guys like the Sandman, New Jack, teams like the Eliminators or Public Enemy that are definitely legendary, definitely deserve it. So maybe they put the whole of ECW in there. It would be really awesome, and I know they're not going to do this, if they were to do the Hall of Fame and make it ECW centric. If they did it from the ECW arena, they're never going to do that. The best we may get is a NXT event at the arena, which would be awesome as well. But this is just an ECW fan's pipe dream. I'd love to see it happen. Now, switching gears, leaving WWE, going over to AEW. Swerve Strickland wins the AEW World Championship by the end of 2024. I've made videos where I praise Swerve and I've said that he is the guy in AEW to push for the future. I've compared him to Stone Cold Steve Austin in a very favorable manner, in the fact that I think he's a guy that needs the rocket ship tied to him and he could be the face of the promotion. I definitely think Swerve wins the world title by the end of the year. Speaking of world titles, before 2024 is over, not only will Cody finish his story, but he'll lose the world championship, and he's going to lose it to Gunther. I think we're going to get either a SummerSlam or Survivor Series, a champion versus champions match, Gunther as the Intercontinental Champion challenging Cody as the World Champion, Gunther defeating Cody, and Cody, much like his dad, Dusty, works best when he's chasing for the championship. He works better than that being the champion. However, you do have to give him championship runs so he does seem like a credible threat. I think Gunther beating him, winning that title from him, setting another setback, then he has to redo his story all over again, makes the most sense to me. And I know I said World Championship, I meant Universal Championship. I'm sorry. Going back to AEW, the main event for All In Wembley, AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland defending against Will Ospreay. If Ospreay is 100% full-time in AEW next year, he is going to main event All In. That's a no-brainer. I think him and Swerve could put on a hell of a match. They could even do a gimmicked match. Hell, it may even be time to bring the exploding barbed wire death match back for it. And I know the last time it went over like a popcorn fart. But I believe they're going to dust it off at some point again. I think this would be an amazing match. I'd love to see it. Hopefully it is the main event. Now here's one that's outside of the world of wrestling, but involves a wrestler. Rhea Ripley is going to get an acting gig. Whether she has a cameo appearance on a TV show as herself, or a character similar to herself, or a bit part in a movie, I think that Hollywood is going to come calling for her, and they're coming calling for her very quickly. I could easily see someone like The Rock and his production company putting her as a secondary star in a movie, kind of like he was back in The Scorpion King, and seeing if she has the star power to carry that. I think she does, and I think it's going to be just a matter of time. Last but not least, this one may be a little bit of wishful thinking, but one I really hope happens. Zelina Vega wins one of the WWE Women's Championships. I think Zelina Vega is awesome. I think the crowd is ready to get behind her in this kind of role. I think she has a great underdog vibe to her. I would absolutely love to see her either get the Raw Women's Championship or the SmackDown Women's Championship or whatever the heck they call them now. I'd love to see her do it. I think this is a year. It's a possibility, especially if someone like Rhea goes into an acting role where she's off of TV for a few months. I think they should give her a chance to run with it. Hopefully this is the year they do. Now if you made it here to the end, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you see where it says join, that's how you become a channel member. Becoming a channel member definitely helps out. If you made it to the end, let me know a prediction you have for 2024. It could be something grounded in reality. It could be something totally crazy. Vince McMahon buys AEW and goes against WWE. Let me know down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Heel Heat.